In a way, it's surprising Honda held out for so long. When the red Civic Type R you see here was launched back in 2007, most of its rivals were already turbocharged. Take the MKV Volkswagen Golf GTI. It had the same power as the 198 bhp Civic, but over 60 pounds-foot more than the 142 pounds-foot the Honda could muster, delivered almost 4,000 rpm further down the rev range. Unsurprisingly, the Civic, with its engine largely carried over from the 2001 EP3 Type R, was criticized for being off the pace. But Honda held out, trusting in VTEC and high revs to do the business. And to a certain extent it did, and still does today. This naturally aspirated 2.0 liter is sharp and tingly. With intake and outflow of gases unimpeded, response is immediate and it'll happily soar round to 8,500 rpm, 1,500 rpm beyond the upper reaches of the turbo's range. It sounds eager and determined, with the engine building to a climax at the top end. If you're prepared to whip it along, it's great. But the overriding impression is of a car that delivers much noise and drama for little progress. That's not a criticism that can be leveled at the new one. The step up in performance between the two generations is easily the biggest here, over 50% or more power, over 100% or more torque. Put your foot down at 30 miles per hour in fourth gear, and 10.7 seconds later you'll have passed 100 miles per hour. The old Civic won't be along for another 8 seconds. But the initial lunge, that moment when you go for an overtake, there's a lot less between the two. The 2015 Civic suffers from considerable turbo lag. Side by side at 25 miles per hour on Dunsfold's runway, old kept new honest for a 4 count before the turbo hooked up and thrust the monstrously winged Civic into the distance. At higher revs the issue is smaller, but it's clear Honda still has work to do to perfect turbocharging. There is noise, but it's flat and bland, lacks tonal definition or the sense that it's working hard. The Civic's blower is mono-scroll, which means the impeller blades are fixed rather than having the variable geometry that allows car makers to tune engine response and torque delivery via the turbos as well as the motor. Since the turbo behaves the same across the rev range, it allows you to feel some of the 4 cylinders' power characteristics, not least the step in performance when the VTEC kicks in. Turbos, especially variable geometry ones, have a tendency to smother not just noise, but character. It's one of our chief blower bugbears. But because you don't have to rev the knackers out of the new one to get places, economy is pleasingly strong. We had a long-term car and it averaged 3.5 mpg, where the old one returns around 2.8 mpg. In saved cost and gained range, that's a difference worth having. As is the power and speed. This is relatively simple first-generation turbocharging, and there's a certain charm to its lag and heavy punch. The Turbo Civic feels raw but rewarding. Yes, it's missing the top-end snap and snarl, the oral pleasure, but of the two, old and new, it's the one to have. 2007 Honda Civic Type R. Engine, inline 1998 cubic centimeters for CYL. Power, 198 bhp at 7800 rpm. Torque, 142 pounds-foot at 5600 rpm. 0, 62 mph, 6.7 secs. mpg/co2, 31.0 mpg, 211g/km. 2015 Honda Civic Type R. Engine, inline turbocharged 1996 cubic centimeters 4CYL. Power, 306 bhp at 6500 rpm. Torque, 295 pounds-foot at 2500 rpm. 0 to 62 miles per hour, 5.7 secs. mpg/co2, 38.7 mpg, 170g/km.